Hey, I have a question for you guys. Do you like anime? Do you like video games? Do you like being able to experience these things in your native language, whether that be English or another language, maybe Spanish, maybe German? Well, we're going to be talking about that today. We're going to be talking about localization. Because this has been a hot button topic for a really long time, and I've had my feelings about it. I've had my conversations, and I've had my opinions on it in the past. And one of my big things for this year, for 2026, is reflecting, going back and reflecting on maybe a lot of different things. One of those things being my preconceived notions about certain topics that I may have touched on in the past in one form or another. And localization is definitely something that I've had some pretty strong and very harsh opinions for English localizers. Because as everybody knows, we all kind of have a general gist, and we're going to get into that kind of stuff of what probably a lot of people expect me to probably talk about. We're going to get into that. But I kind of wanted to first kind of start this video by kind of discussing a little bit about a few other things. A little bit of the history of localization. Because localization has kind of been a thing for a really long time. Even older than probably anime itself in some cases. Now, I'm no expert on the history part, so I won't tackle it fully. But suffice it to say that sometimes localizations happened where they change things and it's not a translation of stuff like stories or maybe songs, but localizations or adaptations, if you would prefer. And actually, in some cases, I really feel that localization of anime, in a lot of ways, does feel a little bit more like an adaptation, more so than just a direct copy of the original work. But before I get into a whole lot of stuff that we're going to talk about, I do not know how long this video is going to be, but we're going to do our best. But I'm going to actually read off of Google here about what the difference is between localization and translation, because I do feel like a lot of the anime fans out there, especially the very vocal ones who complain about this, and we'll get into some of them, I think they do not understand there is a very strong difference between the two. So let's go over it. In basic layman's terms, translation is converting text from one language to another, focusing on linguistic accuracy, while localization is a broader process that adapts content, visuals, and user experience. That's very important. We're going to get into some of that too. To feel natural and culturally appropriate for a specific region. With translation as a key part of it, aiming to adapt the entire experience, not just the message, which would be pretty different. Think of translation as changing words and localization as changing the whole context to resonate locally. So we're gonna go over the whole thing that Google gives because I feel like it's really important. So translation is on three categories: focus, linguistic accuracy, converting text from a source language to a target language; scope, primarily text-based content; goal, to make the original message understandable to another language. Now, localization is a little bit different. It also has three differences. Its focus is cultural adaptation, ensuring content feels native and relevant. Scope of localization is text, images, color, layout, currency, data formats, humor, idioms, legal compliance, and user experience. The goal, to create an immersive, local, relevant experience for the target audience, often involving, the word transcreation. Sorry, that was a weird word. Or basically, creative adaptation. So, let's see. Message, there's key differences and examples here as well. So, messages versus experience. Translation adapts the message. Localization adapts the entire experience. Idioms, translating raining cats and dogs literally might confuse a foreign audience. Localization would find the culturally equivalent idiom, which is very important for Japanese localization because there's a lot of idiom that goes on, and translating it into English is not as easy as some people make it out to be. Visuals. A localized product might change default avatars or color schemes, e.g., using white for mourning in some cultures, black in others. Technical localizations also handle backend coding for different text lengths and data formats. So now that we've kind of covered our bases on what the differences between localization and translation is, let's kind of talk at least a little bit about some of the other stuff that's going on. Basically, we're going to be talking about some of the common arguments against localization that we've been getting for quite some time now, probably almost 10 years or give or take. A lot of it's been going on recently, especially if you are on Twitter, the hell site that place is. We've been seeing a lot of that. At least I have. Especially when regards to stuff like Uma Musume changing things like Merry Christmas to Happy Holidays. There's been a lot of conversation about this topic. And like I said, not an expert, but I'm going to do my best to talk about some common arguments that I have seen for localization, or why the localizers are bad at their jobs, basically. So, one of the most popular and most well-known localized faux pas that everybody loves to talk about is Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid. I know, probably everyone is sick of seeing this. I know I am. It's like me begging and asking people who make jokes to get new material. But we all kind of understand and know what the context for this particular situation is. Now, I could go into full detail and like break this down, but we've seen this as basically a meme, as a commentary on a lot of what we've seen. And for Booting Up Cold, it's gotten kind of old. It's like, the problem that I see is that, like, a lot of the fans seem to have this idea that translating it verbatim is the best way to go about things. And in the past, I probably would have thought, yeah, something like maybe a little bit more closer to the original is a good idea. However, as time has gone on, yeah, the arguments have gotten way, way, way worse. You know, a lot of people complain about Gen Z slang being put in it, which I think is just more or less just the fact of, like, you know, culture is moving forward and Gen Z slang is just a common thing now. Trust me, not exactly a big fan of it. I'm an old man, so I don't get or understand half the Gen Z slang. But yeah, things like Gen Z slang, you know, words that don't feel like they, you know, make sense. There's a lot and a lot of complaints about these types of things. And one of the newer ones that I kind of saw myself diving into a little bit is the talk of localizers are not creatives. They are bastardizers, as some of these fans think. They think that they hate anime, or that they wish to go after and destroy anime with their, you know, liberal agenda and stuff of that nature. There's a lot of this kind of nonsense. And one of the main things I wanted to do is, like, cut through some of the BS. I want to cut through it and get to some really interesting ideas and a lot of things that I've learned recently. I kind of want to jump into, like, a lot of the common misconceptions and the lies that we've been told for a long, long time about the localizers themselves. Now, everybody knows about a lot of these individuals. Probably one of the more famous individuals is an individual by the name of Jamie Marchi, who's a voice actor and an ADR scriptwriter. I believe it's ADR. And if you're wondering what those people do, they typically are there to write the script so that it works in English. That's their main job. Now, Jamie Marchi, And similarly to like considering the whole Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid stuff, which by the way, as far as I'm aware, she did not write that dialogue, though she has been blamed for it. Now, her history is long and has been going on for some time. Basically, she has gained the ire of a lot of very angry fans. But my question is it justified? My opinion, not entirely. No. I think that it's gotten way too much out of hand. Media grifters and a bunch of very hostile people have taken it upon themselves to try and smear and hurt this woman's reputation in more ways than one. And I'm not saying she's a perfect person or a good person all the time. She has made comments or done things that might be viewed as inappropriate or rude. And for a professional, that's not exactly a good thing. But there might be a little bit of a reason for why she acts this way, considering that some individuals have threatened to do her harm or have said very hostile and unpleasant things to her on a regular basis. And no, these are not criticisms, actually. I will leave a link down in the description to her entire thread. You can see some of the toxic behavior that some of these individuals have done to her over the years. It's a lot. I'm noticing that a good amount of it are from accounts that are suspended. So that is in and of itself kind of a mess. So this really does disturb me. This is basically Gamergate all over again. They picked a target, they picked somebody to vilify, and in the process, these media grifters have basically sicked their insane fan base onto her. And just a side note, at least from what I've noticed, and also, by the way, if any localizers are there or see this video, and you're a man that's suffered through harassment, please let me know. I would actually love to hear your feedback as well, but from what I've seen, a good amount of the people who have been harassed, who are localizers, voice actors, and so on, are women or marginalized individuals. There was even a little faux pas with some stuff that involved a recent voice actor. That stuff seemed to be very unneeded. People seem to have gotten upset over flags of all things. That was a mess. That has to do with them just getting a job. And yeah, a bunch of grifters went after that individual and hostily attacked them. So I'm not cool with that either. So we're basically in the realm of basically creating martyrs, creating individuals who are the villains of stories, when in reality, Jamie Marchi and a lot of these other people, they're just doing a job. They're just an employee. And the fact that Jamie Marchi didn't even write these letters for Dragon Maid is kind of more telling of how quickly false information has become. And I think that's kind of like one of my big things against a lot of the people who have been promoting and talking in the way that they have about localizers. In a lot of ways, they have not only have they, demonized these individuals and called them evil or called them, a variety of horrible things, they've also done everything they possibly can to smear their names and lie about them. The voice actor that I just mentioned, basically teasingly and jokingly pushed back against bullying because they were bullied for being transgender and non-binary. And then people, the grifters, try to spin that narrative and say that she was, quote unquote, doing the job that she was hired to do. Which that's not the job that she was hired to do. By what she was meaning, she's literally meaning that upsetting these people is her part-time job, not so much the actual job that she's being hired for. And it's like combating and fighting against things like bigotry and other behaviors like this, I think, is really important. And I don't fault the individual, because the best way to combat against a bully that I know of, even from my own personal experience, is standing your ground and telling them to shove off. It might not be nice, it may not be polite, but sometimes you need to do it. Sometimes you need to stand up for yourself and tell everybody to go screw off. And considering the amount of harassment that these individuals have dealt with for years, I think that it's high time. It's high time. I think it's completely justified that some of them might have a chip on their shoulder, or at the very least are willing to push back. Now, one of the things I know that's going to be pretty difficult to do in a lot of ways is trying to convince other people that maybe we've been misled about localizers and their jobs. So, I think that in some cases, yeah, unfortunately, we've been misled by a bunch of angry grifters who have basically spread this misinformation for a really long time. Now, there's nothing inherently wrong with criticizing bad localizations. They do exist, and I do think that it's important to voice your concern and complaint with localizations that don't match up to standards. I think that that's completely fine. But however, to demonize the localizers and to treat them as these vile human beings that are out to destroy the medium is just blatantly false. As a matter of fact, it's probably one of the most false statements that I have become aware of. And you may be asking yourself, how do I know that these are lies? How do I know that a lot of these things are just misinformation? Because actually, if you go to some localizers pages, there's a number of them, you'll actually find out that they actually break down how their jobs work. They don't typically talk about, like, everything, considering most of them are under NDA, but they have all described their job in great detail, but also why they localize certain things the way that they do. There's like a lot of different information out there that you can probably find for yourself, but I'll be leaving links down below about from a few different channels that have covered the topic of localization and kind of give you guys a little bit of an idea of maybe debunking a little bit of the misinformation that we've been told about for so many years. Now, firstly, I want to actually point you guys out to a YouTube channel by the name of Sarah Moon. Sarah Moon herself is a localizer, right now currently working within video games. And I actually have watched several of her videos talking about localization. Her channel is dedicated not only to explaining why localizations are the way that they are and explaining how they work in great detail, she also breaks down and gives explanation for things like the Japanese language itself. It's a teaching channel just as much as it is a channel talking about her job as a localizer. I think that's pretty impressive. I would highly recommend you go and check her out. There will be links down below to at least one of her videos. The one video that I am thinking about right now is Why Don't Translators Sub Anime the Way I Like. The video is really good and it breaks down basically a sentiment that I think is fairly accurate. The reason why some fans get upset with certain localizations, aside from the ones who have, been grifting off of it, some of the fans don't like localizations because they aren't what they would have done. And it's kind of an interesting thought when I think about it myself. As I reflect on it, I'm like, if I was in their position as a localizer, how would I translate or describe certain scenes if it was in my own writing? Would I have done the same thing? But if I did something different, would it resonate with others? The localizers are not perfect. They're going to make mistakes. They're going to make choices based on their own experience and what they know. So, the question becomes, why do we, as anime fans, get upset about it? I think it's an important question to maybe ask yourself. If you're somebody who's had issues with this, maybe you should explore, like, why does this bother me? And not just from whatever other people have told you to be angry about. Don't be audience captured or anything. Just, maybe take a step back, think for yourself, and say, okay, what does bug me about a localization? And why does it bother me? Because I'll tell you, like, I have my issues with some localizations. I think Fire Emblem Fates is a terrible localization. A bastardization of a lot of the work that went into the game. Complete dialogues either changed or completely removed for no discernible reason other than they could or were lazy. And that's an important thing to talk about. Like, why does it upset me when characters in a game have dialogue either completely rewritten or completely changed? Probably because of the setting and what this story is supposed to be like. It doesn't work. It doesn't fit. Or to say that certain characters can't speak when we know that they can, but their dialogues are just them not talking very much or at all, that's definitely a problem. But at the same time, we need to understand that a lot of the localizers are basically basing everything off of theory. Language theory. Now, I don't know a whole lot about how language theory works. Maybe that's something I could explore later. But this is kind of something that's described in another video that I found that was really, really good, called What the Heck is Localization by Bruce Juice. His video was actually really good as well because he talked about going to Anime NYC and went to a panel with a bunch of localizers, some of whom who've been in the industry for over 20 years, and explaining their jobs. And even they themselves seem like they butt heads and go back and forth on how localizations should be done. Kind of proving that it's more like guidelines than actual rules that they have to follow. It doesn't mean that they don't have standards or that they aren't held to standards, because there is one individual, or there are individuals that they are held accountable to, and that's the anime studios and the owners of the properties themselves. The one thing that I've always found to be very, very difficult and annoying, this argument and this battle has been going on for years, but no one has ever thought to find a solution or find a way to make everything work out for everybody's benefit, not just themselves. There's no answer. Like, why do the anime studios greenlight this kind of thing? I know some individuals, I know of at least one that I can think of from a video off the top of my head. Moten Sensei says that they manipulate and trick the studios into writing these lines, or get away with writing these lines. And that's not true either. I highly recommend you go and look at Sarah Moon's videos, actually. They cover a lot of this stuff really well. It isn't done with evil or malicious intent. These localizers are fans too. And the main thing that they are trying to do is give the correct feeling or convey a similar feeling from the original. That's their goal and objectives, and to make it so that it's easy for us to understand and is an enjoyable experience. That's the reason why the way that subtitles are written and whatnot is so important in an anime, or how it's written in manga. Because if they get it wrong, or they don't format things correctly, it could be kind of messy, and then you get things that don't look right, or maybe confusion because multiple characters are talking at the same time, and then you're like, who's talking and which dialogue should I be following? But the reality is that these localizers are at the behest of the studios. The studios sign off on this, because the one thing that's really important that we probably should talk about is the culture in which the localizers are translating the works into. America is not Japan. We have very different standards here. And so, in some cases, some dialogue and some words may have to be changed, especially if programming is going to be targeted towards certain demographics. It's an unfortunate reality. You can think back to all the 4Kids dubs and Yu-Gi-Oh and whatnot, the removal of guns, or the finger guns if you prefer, or a variety of censorship, or the fact that death is removed from the entire equation. So there is a lot of situations like this where they have to comply with the law of the land itself. There are certain things that they can't show on TV in one form or another. On streaming, it's a lot less of that, considering they're able to get away with stuff. But there are still rules and guidelines that they have to follow, even if it does cause problems or conflicts with conflicts a bit with the creator's original intentions. But the thing is that the original creators themselves also sign off on it. They're okay with some of these changes. They chose these changes. The Miss Kobayashi Dragon Maid thing that everybody has talked about and complained about for so long, yeah, Kyoto Animation signed off on that. They checked the green mark and said, okay, it's good, send it out. So that is just how it is. This is what they do. The anime studios, if there are people who are genuinely want the industry to be better, they want the industry to change and to make meaningful change, I think that the real issue that we need to talk about is, who do we blame for it? The localizers, by the way, are underpaid. These people get paid, at least from what I've researched, about $80 an hour. Some of them might get more, or some of them might get less. But they get paid about $80 an hour to work on a grueling schedule. Keep in mind that we're all in the age of simulcast, where animes are translated in English literally hours after they're aired in Japan. So these individuals work on tight deadlines with really horrible schedules, and it's a mess. It's really hard on them. And what's worse of all is that they're contract workers. They don't even fully work for the companies. The companies hire them and then tell them where to go and what to do. They can't unionize. They can't push back fully. They sign NDA agreements. They don't have a lot of protection or guarantee that they can even get a job. That's a scary prospect. I think that we should probably have a conversation about that. Or maybe have a conversation about how they've been mistreated by the fan base of subsets of the community. I think that is important. We should probably maybe voice our complaint and concerns to the Japanese studios themselves. A lot of people talk about how some Japanese studios for video games and anime have become more increasingly aware of what the communities are talking about. And if that's the case, why didn't we lead with that? Why harass low-pay employees? It's like going to Walmart and complaining about the company and all its horrible actions, but instead of yelling at the CEO or someone in a suit, You went to a local store and you yelled at the cashier about these issues. It makes no sense. They don't get paid enough to deal with you. And the reality is that despite how so many people have mistreated the localizers over the last several years, a lot of them are still trying to reach us. They're trying to communicate and trying to bridge a gap and make understanding. And that got me thinking a bit. And I think that maybe there should be a bit of a shift within the community. I don't expect it to happen, but I would like to be a voice that, reaches out a bit for understanding. Because one of my favorite animes of all time, or series in general, is Mobile Suit Gundam. And a big theme of a lot of those is understanding people. It's part of the theming. Reaching out to understand others. I think that should be something that we should strive for. Yes, we might not agree with localizations at times, and that's okay. That's completely fine. I think that's a completely logical and understandable reaction to some localizations. And even some of the localizers themselves would agree with you. Because even they see their peers' localizations at times, don't agree with them. Maybe we need to create more of a dialogue. A bridge between the anime community and the localizers. Because deep down, we're all just nerds. We're all fans of the same thing. Do you really think that localizers would be at a shitty job that they hate? And I want everybody to really think about that. Really think long and hard. Like, if you've been at a job that you hated and you didn't get paid enough, you didn't get paid enough to deal with all of the stuff that goes on, I'm guaranteeing you most of you don't stay at those types of jobs. Unless you have no choice. Or because maybe there's an element of it that you like. Or an element of it that resonates with you in some way. The localizers are in the same boat. Same boat as pretty much everybody. We all have to maybe deal with jobs that we're not huge fans of. But we do it either out of obligation to pay the bills or caring for others. There's a lot that goes on. And I think that, and I actually want to do this part in particular. I want to apologize if I was ever rude or hostile to any localizers in the past. And I'm actually willing to actually go out of my way here to actually open the dialogue. If you're a localizer and you manage to see this video, I now have a clearer understanding of what you've been going through. And more importantly, I would love to talk anime with you guys. Talk about your jobs. I want more people to discuss your side of the industry. What you can talk about, obviously. I want to know. I want to learn. I want to understand. I want to reach out. And I think that's something we should all try and inspire to do. Okay, and with that all being said, I'd like to thank you all for watching this video. If you like this video, please feel free to leave me a like or shoot me a comment. Feel free to talk to me about localization, your thoughts on it. Agree with me, disagree with me, feel free to voice your comments in the description below. I'm always up for conversation. I'm always open to it. But with that all being said, I hope you all enjoyed this video. And if you did, check out some of my other stuff. Or go and check me out over live on Twitch. I'm not streaming currently, but I'm planning on getting back to it as soon as I possibly can. Of course, thank you all for watching again. And I will see you in the next video.